Its grand opening is delayed by many years, and its construction costs have only ballooned. We're on the cusp of finally realizing world-class pathology services and speeding up autopsies in Gauteng. But an outstanding 100 million rand debt stands in the way of us cutting the ribbon to Johannesburg's new Forensic Medical Services super lab.
The people who are working on the project are tired of reading that they're the ones holding the project up. The developer is owed 100 million, and they're at the point where they're saying we are not completing anything more until that money is handed over. I try and do the same story once a year as a push to say it's been 3 years and we're still 98, what's going on? So they'd read the story and then said, look, it's not us, come and take a tour.
This is the voice of News 24 journalist Alex Patrick, who takes us inside the super modern pathology lab next. Later in the show, an ex-apartheid era policeman has been sentenced to 15 years behind bars for a 1987 murder. And finally, don't know how to get your local pothole plugged? Well, there's soon to be an app for that.
To know when the next episode drops, hit the like, follow, and subscribe buttons on our YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast channels.
Please stay tuned until the end of the show to hear your voice notes from the previous edition's topic. Here's a quick snippet.
My thoughts are, he did what he did, and now he's just trying to justify his means. Like, why would he send an emoji of a banana?
And if you'd like to engage us on this episode's topic, you can send us your thoughts and opinions to the official Lead WhatsApp line. That number, 072 562 3179. My name's Graham Robenheimer. Let's chat all this and more right here on The Lead on News 24. It's a state-of-the-art facility. It's meant to speed up the processing of post-mortems and toxicology reports to give grieving families much-needed closure. But Gauteng's new Forensic Medical Services super lab in Johannesburg's Auckland Park, that's near the Helen Joseph Hospital, remains a ghost town, at least for now. It's 98% complete, but its building contractors refuse to lift another finger until they're paid the final costs that they claim they're owed. In the meantime, a derelict downtown Hillbrow facility continues to pick up the slack of Gauteng's pathology services. Now, a star journalist who's been on this story for many years is News 24's Alex Patrick. She joins me from Josie now to catch me up on the developments there. Alex, welcome on your debut edition of The Lead.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You've been on the story, as I say, for a really long time, and a lot of your reports have stretched back during the pandemic. To those who don't exactly know, and I thought this would be a great, excellent point because you've dealt with it so much. What exactly does a forensic pathology services lab meant to do? It's the processing of post-mortems in as I understand it, and obviously in cases where it might be suspected that someone's died of unnatural causes, right?
Exactly, and that's the thing that gets people confused. When you die, you don't automatically go to one of these facilities. It's only in cases of a suspicious death or an accident, a car accident, murders, poisonings, anything that needs investigating. Those deaths are investigated at a forensic pathology lab. It's where samples are taken. It's where DNA is taken. It's basically the kind of central space for any of the detectives to kind of start their work.
So toxicology reports, DNA samples needed, very important in criminal cases to help speed that up and bring, finality in many cases. What is the sort of backlog figure then for postmortems, those sort of things at the moment? Because we only have the Hillbrow facility. Do you know that figure?
I do. So they are up to speed. They're up to date. Those men and women who work at that facility are extremely hardworking. It takes about 2 to 3 days for an autopsy to be completed, which is the kind of standard. Most autopsies are done within the day and then collected by the funeral home or stored for a few days and then collected by the family. So they don't have a backlog at the minute.
but they're working under extremely terrible conditions. You've sort of reported in the past how it's sort of derelict buildings in that part of town. There's apparently a stench in the air. Describe it to us.
It's absolutely horrendous, Graham. And I must say, the first time I went in there, I was shocked at the conditions. So the people who work there, and like you said, work under horrendous conditions. There's an HVAC system, right, that is supposed to be in every one of these mortuaries. That's your system. It's an aircon, basically. They do not have those facilities. They don't have the ability to suck the stench, which is what you're supposed to do, from the body and have that contained. So the stench is in the air. And I think the most awful thing about that is not just the students who work there, because there's a Wits students work there. It's not just the mortuary workers who work there, who are, by the way, highly skilled and have trained for 7 years to work under those circumstances. But you as a grieving family member now need to walk into that facility and you can smell rotting flesh. You know, I shouldn't say this, and I don't say this lightly, but the first time I went there, when fat putrefies, which is what happens when the body decays, it sticks to hair. Graham, I had to wax my nose hairs. I know that's a bit odd, because I for days could not stop smelling the taint of that death in the air. It was in my hair, it was on my clothes, and I went for a 3-hour visit.
Sure. I actually can't believe what you're telling me right now. They don't have the HVAC system, as you say, and yet they've managed to keep up with the number of postmortems that they conduct. It's one of the most busiest facilities in the country. Is that right?
It is the busiest facility. So most facilities are doing around 1,500 bodies a year. They're seeing 4,000, 5,000. And obviously, because that's their jurisdiction. And interestingly, most of those bodies, multiple gunshots and stabbings.
Sure. Okay, so they're keeping up with what's required of them under, terrible conditions. And here's this beautiful project that gets started for what's supposed to be the best in Africa. It's supposed to be a world-class facility to take off a lot of the burden that Hillbrow's had to deal with. When did the first sort of plans get put on the table for this apparent world-class facility nearby the Helen Joseph Hospital? When, to your understanding, did that all sort of kick off?
So the actual kind of scoping and working with all the forensic kind of laboratory workers started in 2014, because they had a lot to do with, what's the best systems to buy, what kind of space they need, all of that. So that started in 2014. It was meant to break ground in 2016.
And then what was the first initial completion date, to your knowledge, Alex?
It was 36 months later. So 2019 was supposed to be the handover date.
And then that obviously didn't happen because it wasn't soon thereafter we sort of, went into the pandemic. But what were the first sort of warning signs of them not meeting their deadlines?
Exactly. So even before the pandemic, there were warning signs. They started, the construction company started building, and the development company, really the overseer of the project, looked at the drawings and realized that, major construction elements were underscaled. So we're talking about, buttresses that are meant to hold up the buildings were undermeasured. So that halted the entire project for 4 months. So it was then back on the go in 2017. And then there was an issue with the HVAC system. Like I said, that's your aircon, basically, for lack of another word. It cleanses the air. It's very important. It takes out all the germs, so you're not breathing in all of that stuff. It hadn't been built to scale, so they had to stop, because that obviously goes within the structure of the building. So there was a delay there. Then it's a beautiful facility in that there's so much light that comes in there, and they built it like that. And the construction company had ordered the wrong windows.
Sure.
So there was an issue there. And then it was 2019, and then it was COVID. COVID halted the project for 2 years. And then it got started again, but obviously, it shouldn't be obvious. There were issues now with funding.
That was what I was going to ask, Alex. What was the initial sort of budget set for the facility? And then obviously, because the contractors are now on site and they, as you say, picking up all these issues, it's now sort of changing the scope of how much money is needed to make sure that the job gets done properly. And so then government has to go through all the red tape and bureaucracy and budget allocations to then find the shortfall or the windfall of the funding there, right, to our understanding. So how much was that budget first, and then how much did it sort of get changed or corrected to?
So the initial budget was 588 million. And then obviously, because of the years ticking by and the cost of things going up, it's now ballooned to 703 million.
Sure, which is quite a lot. It's quite a big push up.
Quite a handful, yes. Currently, the building is 98% complete,
right,
which is where it's been sitting for the last 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years. So it's like, the first thing I saw when I first saw your report a couple of months back, before the latest one that we're sort of alluding to today, when you went on this tour of the facility, and we're going to get to that in the next short while, my thinking was like, this is sort of in danger. And I immediately thought of like a World Cup stadium built, and it's really beautiful, and we use it once maybe in a particular part of the country, and it doesn't get used as often again, and we often touted this idea of it could potentially be a white elephant. Here's a potential white elephant. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. It's 3 years, pushing 3 years at this almost complete stage. 98% complete. What are the sort of outstanding issues to your knowledge here that needed to be signed off? What is the main company that needs to be paid in order for these last things to be sort of finalized, so that there can be sort of a signature at the end of all of this?
So it's now up to the developer, Mazia General Services. There's not a lot left to do. In fact, the forensic section is complete. But what does need to happen before any building is handed over is it needs to be inspected and cleared, and then it will be handed over to the health department.
You're listening to the latest edition of The Lead on News 24 with Graham Rowenheimer. If you've got an opinion on what you've heard so far, drop us a short voice note on our WhatsApp hotline. That's 072-562-3179. You
are one of the only journalists in the country that's actually gotten a bit of a sneak peek inside the facility to go and see the scope of the services offered there. And we've got this fantastic video up in your story today entitled State of Delay, Johannesburg's 703 million rand state-of-the-art forensic lab project drags on. Any of our subscribers can go and watch that video. It's really stunning stuff. I mean, there's auditoriums, for the lack of a better word to describe it, where it would teach budding students as procedures are done live. And of course, police officials and other authorities can also sit in and watch these things if necessary. Take us through your tour, and how did that come about?
I think, to be honest, the people who are working on the project are tired of reading that they're the ones holding the project up. The developer is owed 100 million. And they're at the point where they're saying, we are not completing anything more until that money is handed over. So that's how everything came about. And I think just from reading, I try and do the same story once a year as a push to say it's been 3 years and we're still 98, what's going on? So they'd read the story and then said, look, it's not us, come and take a tour. And I feel extremely, extremely lucky to have toured that facility. It is absolutely beautiful.
What, other than that auditorium, and you also explained that some of the sort of like corridors are very neatly color-coded to know exactly where you go. Take us through the facility. What really struck you?
So at the bottom floor, obviously, because I spent so much time at the Hillbrow mortuary, the bottom floor struck me. It is completely, when I say state of the art, the equipment in there is brand new. It's got freezing facilities for over 1,000 bodies, which is way more than the mortuary currently has. It's got this system that basically draws the smell from the bodies and places it in a kind of holding tank. So there's none of that stench. But also what's very important is the kind of teaching conditions. Like you said, auditoriums behind glass, and a lot of detectives. So your detectives are supposed to watch the autopsy. And I understand that their dockets are full, but one of the main reasons they don't do it is you can imagine standing there, and what it currently is this kind of room with tables around it, with people kind of being cut up, blood on the floor and all of that kind of thing. It's not an environment for really learning or kind of witnessing what's going on.
Yes, it's not a professional. It's not a fully professional environment. In other words, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it wasn't built for purpose. So this one is, you've got your rooms. Every single room has a camera, so the students can watch the autopsies live. They can learn from the teachers, and they've got state-of-the-art slabs, for lack of a better word, where a body will come on to the table, and that slab that the body lies on is fitted for a gurney, and the gurney will take it to the cold room, which is fitted for that slab. So there's none of this kind of picking up bodies, putting them in the fridge, all of this kind of awkward handling of the bodies. It's actually it's a more respectful way of actually handling these bodies.
Absolutely. Now, I thought this quite interesting because I've experienced this as well. 2 different departments sort of passing the buck, if you will. You immediately think the Gauteng Health Department, it's a health facility. It should be the main arbiter of answering the media's, questions about what's happening next. But often the case, and a lot of times the public doesn't know this, is that, because the facility was built under a different budget, this time being the Infrastructure Development Department, if I have that correctly. And
yes,
they're sort of passing the buck between the two as to where you can, as a journalist, get answers about what's going to be the state of play for this facility. When is it going to open? Have you been lucky to get any sort of answers yet?
The answers are generic. And it's always the same. Gauteng Health is obviously paying for the facility, and they will be the kind of custodians of the facility, but it's being built by DID, as you said, Infrastructure Development. So Health will automatically send me to the Infrastructure Development provincial sector, and then they'll say, but they've answered my questions, and they haven't really. The only questions they've answered is how complete is it, how much does it cost, and what does a facility have. Those answers are freely available. But in terms of your contractors, why is there such a high turnover? I believe they're on their 3rd contractor now, actually building the facility. Why is there such a high turnover? Why are we using contractors that don't complete the job? Have we paid those contractors? Those kind of questions I'm not finding any answers to.
So we don't know where the 100 million rand is going to come from to pay off the final work. But there
No.
has been a date given of September 2025 for the facility to be complete in terms of the construction work. Is that right? Where does that come from?
That's correct. So the oversight committee actually, I was very lucky in when I was researching this facility for this story. They had actually sat, and one of the things they were looking at was incomplete health structures, and this was one of the facilities. Interestingly, on that document, it says that the document clearly states that the reason for it taking so long is non-payment. The document also says that there's a potential for the current developer to just walk away and wash their hands of it. And there's a mention that they owe the developer, but there's no mention of how they're going to pay that. They just say it will be deferred. Payment will be deferred. What that means is anybody's guess.
Sure. Okay. So we've got Hillbrow picking up the slack. It's not under great conditions. We've got this fantastic facility sitting around for 3 years, 100 million that still needs to be paid. No answers that we're getting from government, real concrete ones to take us forward. How will this facility assist in this particular pathology sector going ahead? Or how, if it had to come online tomorrow, Alex, how great would it be for the health sector? Do you know how much of a game changer it could be?
It's going to change everything. So, I just described the bottom floor. This is 4 floors. The second floor is this massive forensic laboratory, and that is going to be helping with the backlogs. It's massive. It's the entire kind of floor of that building. State-of-the-art equipment is sitting there in their boxes still. It's a beautiful, clean center. It also is going to be hosting detectives. So there's no excuse for, I've got to get from the station to the mortuary. No, your investigators are going to be in that building. They literally have to walk downstairs because they'll be at one of the top floors, which is officing space. They have to walk downstairs. The second floor will then be your laboratory to see if there's any results, and the bottom floor will be the autopsy. It will change. It will change everything. The other thing about the the Johannesburg Hillbrow mortuary is that it is the place where bodies that are unidentified are sent. They do reconstruction of the faces of the deceased. If a body, for instance, is sitting in the morgue for many, many years, what they do is they turn it into a skeleton, and then it's actually sent to Wits where they recreate the face. So it's this incredible teaching environment. It's where the country is sending all of its kind of missing, your John Does. It would change everything.
I was hoping that in our coverage on the lead on News 24 this week, Alex, that we were going to end off on a positive note. But I'm actually just super frustrated because here's an excellent example of when South Africa can punch above its weight, because it's all within our blood to be amongst the world's best. Here we have this absolutely fantastic facility that, as you say, will change things. And 3 years for cobwebs to gather dust in this facility is absolutely frustrating, and I have no other words to share in that regard. I hope you'll get some answers soon here. Anything you feel like you need to follow up in the story in the interim? Any last question for now, at least, that you feel like needs answering?
I think it's just that it's 98%. It's not that hard. And for you and me, 100 million is a lot of money. For the provincial government, it's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money to hand over, and it's not a lot of money to kind of give peace of mind to families whose loved ones have died. They don't have to wait now up to 10 years for those toxicology reports.
Especially when we deal so often over the years, Alex, with allegations of corruption, of wasteful expenditure that far exceed 100 million rand, right? I hear your point loud and clear. Alex Patrick, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it for going deep into the story for us. State of delay, Joburg's 703 million rand state-of-the-art forensic lab project drags on, is still trending on the front page of News 24. Alex has been dogged on the story for many years now, and I'm sure she will be at that facility when it has the grand opening, knowing full well that she knows exactly what it looks like inside. Alex, thank you so much. I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you, Graham.
To our trending topic now, and a former apartheid-era policeman's now been sentenced to 15 years behind bars for the 1987 murder of student activist Caiphus Nyoka. Johan Maree, now aged 66, previously pleaded guilty to gunning down Nyoka in Daveyton on Gauteng's East Rand some more than 37 years ago. Maree insists he was under orders to assassinate Nyoka, a prominent COSAS leader. He learned his fate on Thursday in the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria. Whilst Maree is owned up, his two co-accused, Leon van den Berg and Abraham Engelbrecht, claim they're innocent. The National Prosecuting Authority hopes that this sentencing will set a strong precedent in pursuing reopened cases emanating from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Judge Mokine Masopa says the 15-year prison term must serve as both a deterrent and retribution. What say you? Drop us a voice note 072 562 3179.
Looking for a smarter weekend scroll? The Weekender is your ultimate guide to bold stories, sharp opinion, and a fresh lens on life in Mzansi. From exclusive interviews and powerful essays to wine picks, playlists, and pop culture gems, it's your perfect weekend read all in one place, landing every Saturday on News 24.
Finally, don't know how to get your local pothole plugged? Well, there's soon to be an app for that. There's a new platform, it's called Fix Local, one word, which is bringing South Africans closer to the authorities in their respective areas tasked with local governance. You can access this service on WhatsApp. In a nutshell, Fix Local points you to the information you need to lodge a complaint or issue and then escalate it, and then potentially as a last resort, fix it yourself. News 24's Good News editor Paul Herman tells us that you should think of it as a one-stop shop for all things service delivery. Fix Local, with its built-in geolocator, offers coverage over 18 cities and towns. It's offering an online database of councillors' details and other necessary information. Think of it as a broader version of what the City of Cape Town already offers, except that Fix Local's developing an official app for the one-stop shop to be released, well, hopefully soon. Stunning stuff. From apps to report potholes to a stunning 700 million rand facility 2% away from opening, Mzansi is alive with potential and possibility. Let's have a listen to your voice notes from the previous edition entitled Consensual Sects or Unwanted Advances. Mbenenge under fire with Karen Morn. We spoke about Eastern Cape Judge President Salbi Mbenenge, who had been under cross-examination over allegations that he had sexually harassed a former court secretary, Andiswa Mengo. If the Judicial Service Commission, which is currently sitting in Sandton, finds the very senior judge guilty, he could be impeached. Let's have a listen to what you had to say. Some very, very interesting WhatsApps coming through on our line over the past 24 hours or so.
No, you know what, ne? This guy is being very he's trying to be very clever with this whole thing. My thoughts are he did what he did and now he's just trying to justify his means. Why would he send an emoji of a banana? He knows ukuthi ubanana uqonda ukuthini, ubanana or half peeled. He knew what he was doing. Sonje.
Hi, good evening. This judge knows better. He knows the law better than any other one. So he must just face the consequences. Whether it's whatever case might be, he knows better. And then the law must take its course from Amos in Joburg.
You know what? Mahai Siganella, this one, based in Durban. You know, if someone advances such advancement towards you to form part of harassment or unwanted harassment advances, should be that person notified to say, stop doing that. Stop that advances. In this issue, there is no such thing. Therefore, they were in good terms. There's nothing against JP. Nothing.
Hi, News 24. My thoughts around this whole issue of JP, it's very simple. Tell me why would you want somebody to take off their coat for you to see a structure if there's nothing going on between you guys, right? And another thing, emojis are actually another form. Clearly this man knows what he was doing, right? And I just felt like there is no misinterpretation and he's trying to duck and dive about it, but we all know. So I feel like the old man must just come forward and come clean and say, hey guys, I was wrong.
Thank you so much for your voice notes. I really do appreciate it. It's been a lot of engagement this week. If you'd like to potentially leave your thought or opinion on today's topic, you can do so on our WhatsApp line. Again, that number 072-562-3179. Returning back to the airwaves Monday to Thursday next week, like clockwork at 7 p.m. So look out for that. In the meantime, you can hit our follow and subscribe buttons on the relevant platforms, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. We do appreciate it. Until then, my name's Graham Robenheimer. Have a fantastic weekend. And so long as there's news, we'll have the lead.